Welcome back to Savage Rounds with Xavier. Over the weekend, we had two heavyweights go at it in the main event. Jailton Almeida taking on Derek Lewis over in Sao Paulo at UFC Sao Paulo. Other than this main event, which ended up being a bit disappointing compared to maybe what it could have been, I think people were just disappointed at the lack of a finish. The card was pretty good. It was a fun card. We did get a draw, which was weird. Doesn't happen too often, but a pretty fun card top to bottom. We're going to talk about it. I'll give out some awards, and then we will see who I'm doing matchmaking for tomorrow. I didn't have a video out, so I'll talk about these maybe individually. I wasn't able to get the video out. I posted my picks on Twitter just so they were out there. We went 7-2-1. Two decent weekends back to back. I was upset we didn't get the Vieira versus Petrosian fight. That was going to be a really fun fight. Clash of styles, big clash of styles. And I think Petrosian, that was my pick. I went with Petrosian. I actually had a bet down. It was my biggest bet of the night. I think that would have been a really fun fight, to be honest. But we didn't end up getting it. Petrosian got sick in the back, like right before the fight. There's pictures of him out on a stretcher getting taken out. So hopefully he's good and they can run that back. Or not run it back, but run that fight pretty soon. Kicking off the night, we had, I don't know how to say his name. It's like Kawe or something like that. Fernandez taking on Mark Jacasey. Mark Jacasey is a tough ask on your first fight. He was over in LFA, so he was fighting some decent guys. But Mark Jacasey, solid vet in the UFC, beats the guys he should. Has some trouble with the higher level guys, but he went out there, did well in the striking. Went to the wrestling like we know he's been doing quite recently. He's put on the wrestling shoes a lot, and he was able to get the victory. Nothing too crazy in that one. If you were on the Jacasey side, it went about how you thought it would probably. My most confident spot, I think it was probably a lot of people's most confident spot, Eduardo Mora taking on Montserrat Conejo. Mora is just a physical specimen at strawweight. She's 5'6", and she just, when she's in the cage, she looks huge compared to whoever she's in there with. She did miss weight, which is a concern. You don't want to see girls missing weight, especially on their debut. But the previous fight Conejo had, she was having trouble with the ground. A fighter 3 inches taller, Jacqueline Amarim, was able to get her down with ease whenever she wanted in that fight. She is a jiu-jitsu ace, so there's no shame in that. But a girl coming in who's going to be, in Eduardo Mora, who's going to be so much stronger, so much bigger, who is a primary grappler, this fight was always going to go this way. I had money on inside the distance with Eduardo Mora, so we hit that. She got it done in round 2. It was just a tough ask. With the weight miss, Conejo accepting the fight, it was her last fight on the contract. I think accepting the fight, even with the weight miss, is what got her a new contract. She'd actually get renewed just today, I believe. So good for her. We'll see her back. Hopefully she can have a better outing in her next appearance. Angela Hill taking on Denise Gomes in the next fight. I had Gomes in this one. I thought with age, obviously Hill's still in there. She's still beating these younger contenders coming up. I thought, though, we've seen her get cracked a few times in recent fights, so I was thinking maybe as she's getting older that she's starting to become more susceptible to that. And Denise Gomes is not a girl you want to get hit by. She's a big power puncher. We saw her knock out Yasmin Jauregui, who a lot of people thought was a I don't want to say super prospect, but a lot of people thought she was a very good prospect for this division. And she went out there and lit her up in like 20 seconds, got her out of there. And after breaking the fights down how I typically do, I thought Gomes was going to be able to crack her at some point and get her out of there. But Angela Hill, smart vet, savvy vet, she was able to get in there, mix it up. She even went into the fire a few times and was able to withstand the shots she took, or just not get hit by anything too clean. She did well there. She was able to go out, and her cardio was definitely the better of the two. You could tell with how big Denise Gomes swings, how explosive she is. Her actions are definitely gonna make her more tired later on in the fight. And Angela Hill, she's always going to be there late in the fight. She's never going to stop. Her engine's crazy. So she was able to go out there, be a smart veteran, get the fight done, resorted to her grappling as well. It was just a solid performance from her. I thought there was a chance round 2 was going to be swung for her. It was a very close round. I gave it to Angela Hill, to be honest. But I thought there was a chance it was going to end up being a swing round. I thought Gomes won round 1. And then Hill ended up taking 2 and 3. 3 was definitely her, but it was a fun fight overall. Fast-paced, and another up and comer knocked down for Hill. So good stuff. Next up, we had Vitor Petrino taking on Modestas Bukauskas. I thought this was a tough matchup for Bukauskas. Petrino is a massive, huge, strong guy, and Bukauskas has been chin checked a few times. I'm not a big fan of his fighting style. He's super. I don't know. It's almost too patient, too relaxed for me. It's just I've never been a huge fan of it. I thought Petrino was going to be able to catch him at some point, and he did. We got that huge left hook as Modestas jumped in for a shot as well. Petrino countered with that big left hook, put him out. It was a good stoppage from the referee because Modestas was starting to get back up, but he would have gotten hit with some mean shots if the ref let it go. So 1 and done for Petrino with that knockout punch. Good work for him. Next up, we had a barn burner in Rinat Fakhretdinov taking on Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos, and I think this was a lot of people were saying fraud check. I hate throwing around that term because a loss isn't, and he didn't even lose, it was a draw. But I think we got to see he isn't maybe the crazy super prospect people were touting him to be in Rinat. He had trouble getting Zaleski down at times. He hurt Zaleski dos Santos early. It was like one of the first shots he threw, and I thought he was going to get him out of there. But dos Santos did very well to recover and put together a good round 2 and round 3 to win those two. Even hurt Fakhretdinov with a huge, I'm pretty sure he hit him with a nice teep kick up right in the gut. Dropped him. There was probably a chance the ref could have stopped it. Fakhretdinov was covering up and wasn't really looking to defend himself, was just kind of covering up and waiting it out, but the ref let it go on. We end up getting a 10-8 in that round from Dos Santos. So round 1 went to Fakhretdinov, 2 and 3 went to Dos Santos. We get a draw. 2 and 3 went to Dos Santos. Fakhretdinov won 1 and 2, and the 10-8 in round 3, that's what I meant to say. The 10-8 in round 3 is what got him the draw. So first 2 rounds, and I think we also got to see Fakhretdinov has pretty good power, but the striking really isn't all there. It's a lot of big, wild, winging hooks. It's not too much technique. And, maybe there's a stoppage from another ref there for Dos Santos. This guy didn't give it, so we end up getting a draw there. Next up, Elvis Brenner took on Kenan Kraszewski. I believe it's how you say it. And, man, Elvis Brenner had possibly a knockout of the year contender. It was sick. He comes in, throws the right hook, swings the left hook, and as Kraszewski's turning, it clips him like right here behind the ear and puts him out cold. He fell flat on his face, did not move. And Brenner gets another one. He was supposed to fight Esteban Ribovics, which that would have, I think everybody was excited for that fight. That had fight of the year potential if it went how I think people imagined it could have gone. But Ribovics isn't able to make it to the cage. Kraszewski steps in. Tough first fight in Elvis Brenner, but obviously, as a newcomer to the UFC, these guys are chomping at the bit to get in there, so he's going to take any opportunity he can to get into the cage, and Brenner did what Brenner does. It was a sick knock. I mean, there's really not much else to say. It was a sick knockout. Really good for Brenner. Like I said, disappointed in the Vieira Petrosyan fight getting canceled, but hopefully Petrosyan's able to get well soon, and we can get that fight back up. Kyle Braulio took on Abus Magomedov, and this fight, to be honest, went relatively how I thought it would. Kyle might not be the most aggressive guy, but he's a super... He talks about it all the time. He wants to be one of the smartest fighters in the UFC. He's quite a cerebral fighter. He's pretty patient, maybe sometimes can be overly patient, but it wasn't an issue in this fight. He was able to slowly wear down Abus Magomedov, and maybe there's a shout for he probably should have found a finish in the third. I don't want to say Abus quit, but man, he started taking deep breaths in the beginning of the third, and there was just nothing coming back, and he was eating shots more, kind of covering up. It wasn't a good look from him. Kyle gets the back, probably should have had a finish, but it is what it is. Kyle comes in with a great game plan. He knew he was going to be the more technical fighter. His striking is obviously always improving, and he knew his cardio was better, so he was going to go in there and break down Abus over 3 rounds, and that's what he did to get the victory. It may not have been the most exciting performance, and I think that's why people are kind of shitting on the performance, but it was a good, smart game plan, and he executed well nonetheless. So very good win for Kyle Braulio, and it'll be interesting to see who he gets next, which I'll talk about tomorrow. Next up, maybe the most unneeded rematch ever. I don't even know. Rodrigo Nascimento took on Dante Almeida. They fought like 2 years ago or something. Nascimento choked him out in the second, and I guess with the heavyweights, there's not really much you can do about it. If they find themselves meeting up again, it is what it is. They were kind of, I don't know. I guess it just made sense for the matchmakers and where they were and who was booked already. That kind of stuff. But Nascimento went out there, wasn't able to get the takedowns like he was last time, or the takedown he got last time in the second round to finish it. But Dante, his takedown defense held up, but I think he was expecting to be able to outbox Nascimento, and Nascimento did very well on the feet. Maybe to some people's surprise, but it was a good performance from him. He was able to, he didn't like hurt Mays bad, but you could definitely tell he clipped him and stunned him. He was seeing stars a few times maybe, and Nascimento never really. There were a few times he exerted and tried to get the finish, but just wasn't able to. Mays had pretty decent defense covering up well, and we drag it out to the third round. Heavyweights banging. It was actually a pretty decent fight. Normally, once you see heavyweights get into the third, it can be a little slow, but they were both still going for it. Mays knew he needed the finish going into the third, so they were swinging. It was a decently fun fight. Nascimento gets it done over 3 rounds, getting the unanimous decision. Co-main event, Gabriel Bonfim taking on Nicolas Dalby. I picked Bonfim in this one. I thought we were going to see what we saw in the first round, but I thought Bonfim was going to be able to, like he had him at times, down to the ground, threatening submissions. I thought he was going to be able to find one of those early submissions. But man, Nicolas Dalby survives the early onslaught, and that was, you can tell, that was his thinking going in. He knew his cardio was better, so he was going to go in there and crack with Bonfim. They did. They were swinging hard in the first and early second, but mostly the first round. Dalby was in the fire. He went in there and held his own. It was pretty cool to see, actually. I think a lot of people counted him out, including myself. I had Bonfim as the pick, but Bonfim just wasn't able to get the finish, and Dalby wore him down. We know what Dalby can do. He's a very talented striker. Maybe not a grappling ace, but he's like overall well-rounded, so he's decent on the ground. Was able to survive some precarious positions, and like I said, wore down Bonfim. But he made Bonfim crumble, and once Bonfim crumbled, he pounced, hit him with a really nice knee at one point. Bonfim goes down, Dalby swarms, the fight's over. It was a sick performance from Dalby. And I don't want to, like, it's weird to say deserved, but it might be a performance he deserved. Like, the run he's been on has been insane, and then for him to have to fight down again, like an upcoming prospect, what can you do? He got it done, so it'll be very interesting to see which direction they both go next. Obviously, Bonfim's going to have to regroup. He won't be fighting, like, right outside the rankings anymore. I think this was a fight to try and get him into the rankings relatively quickly. Dalby was on a nice win streak, so I think they thought maybe we can get him to jump the line quicker with this, but Dalby holds strong, gets the victory. Second round TKO, really good stuff. Dalby's right on the edge of the rankings. It'll be very interesting to see what they give him next. And then we get to the main event. Jailton Almeida took on Derek Lewis. I don't think anybody's surprised with how it went, but I think people are disappointed. I think people were expecting some huge, crazy knockout from Derek Lewis or Jailton Almeida to get the early submission. Spivak was able to do it, so I think people were expecting Jailton too. But if you really thought about it, that's how every round was always going to look if Jailton wasn't finding the finish. He was always going to be able to get Derek Lewis down. He was always going to be able to find himself in advantageous positions. And like I said, a little disappointing he wasn't able to find the finish, but he got it done. So it's tough to like shit on him like a lot of people are doing. Underwhelming for sure. He probably should have been able to get the finish. He definitely needs to work on his ground and pound. It's looked ugly in most of his fights when the guy is not covered up, like laying face down. It it looks ugly. So he's obviously gonna have to work on his ground and pound. His jiu-jitsu is the forefront of his game on the ground. That's what he wants. He wants to be able to choke you out. But Derek Lewis, his anti-jiu-jitsu prevails again. In not being finished, and Jilton Almeida, easy 50-45. I think there was one judge that gave a 10-8 somewhere in there, but yeah, easy work for Jilton Almeida. Like I said, underwhelming. Probably should have found the submission, but it is what it is. He gets the victory nonetheless. Now we move on to my personal awards. Sometimes they're the same as the UFC. I always say this. Sometimes they're the same as the UFC. Sometimes they're not. I kind of just pick what I would go with. Fight of the night, this one was obvious. It was a barn burner as long as it lasted. Nicholas Dalby taking on Ismail Bonfim. If I didn't give it to Bonfim here, or if I didn't give a performance bonus to Dalby here, he was gonna get a performance of the night one. So I felt like he needed one, and this fight was, like I said, as long as it lasted, it was sick, a barn burner. So good on both of these guys, and like I said, sick performance from Dalby. Really cool to see. Next up, performance of the night has to be Eduardo Mora in my opinion. I know technically she's not supposed to get one because she missed weight. You're not available, or well, I can't think of the word available for bonuses, but I'm not the UFC, so I'm giving her one. It was a sick performance. I think even if she makes weight, that's the same fight we get. I think she's that good and that dominant. Next up, Vitor Petrino, one and done. Put Bukauskas out, not cold because he was starting to work his way back up, but it would have been bad news if the ref let the fight go on. So it was good that he stopped it. Sick knockout for Petrino. And my next performance of the night bonus, gotta go with Elvis Brenner. It is a possible knockout of the year contender. You have to give him a bonus here. There's literally nothing else like it. When I was talking about the fight, I didn't even really have many words to say because they were going back and forth, trading, trying to find the shot, and then Elvis did. So he gets that done. Like I said, possible knockout of the year contender. Elvis had to get a performance of the night bonus. My winners of the night, I always say, if you haven't seen any of these before, it can be based on the performance in the cage. It can be with circumstances surrounding the fight. It really just depends kind of on the situation. First one, Angela Hill. I think, I don't want to say she was counted out of this fight, but I think a lot of people thought the up-and-coming prospect who just steamrolled another prospect in Yasmin Haragi was going to be able to get this one done. Angela Hill chops down another young up-and-comer. And yeah, she gets to stay kind of in her bottom of the ranking spot. So Angela Hill gets it done, proves she's still in here. She's not done yet. I think that's why I felt she was in this spot. Maybe not all the way counted out, but I think a lot of people doubted her in this one, and she was able to get it done. Next up, again, has to be Elvis Brenner. No big circumstances surrounding the fight. Like, he's not getting a title shot or getting a ranked fight after this. But to get a knockout of the year contender, or at least possible in my brain, I feel like he has to be one of the big winners. It'll be something circulating around on Twitter. A lot of people will see it. It's just a good knockout to have on his resume. Great stuff. I mean, yeah, what else can you say? And lastly, has to be Nicholas Dalby. This one, kind of like the Angela Hill one, but I think people were actually counting out Nicholas Dalby. Obviously, I saw it on Twitter too. There were the very few people betting Nicholas Dalby, and great on them. That was very sharp, very smart. And good betting, good predictions, good analysis on their part. But yeah, I think a lot of people were counting Dalby out, and for him to go out there and go into the fire with Bonfim, not just kind of sit back and try and avoid it, but he went in there to win that fight. Obviously, he does every fight, but I mean, he went in there to bang. Like, he really went for it, and he just knew he could outpace Bonfim, and he did. It was, like I've said it 50 times tonight, it was a sick performance. And then worst nights, bad night. I don't have any. I was considering a couple. You could have gone Bonfim, but a lot of people were throwing around the term fraud checked. It's stupid. It was his first UFC loss. It was his toughest fight. He's still a very good prospect. He just has to regroup and go at it again. It's not a fraud check, so I don't want to call that like a loser of the night or one of the worst nights because it's his first loss. It happens. Are there any other? You could throw Modestas Bukauskas in there for getting knocked out cold. That sucks always. Kanan Krzyzewski, you could have also given it to him or thrown him in that category, but again, he took the fight on short notice. It's always a tough ask. Elvis Brenner's no easy fight for your first UFC fight, so I don't know. I didn't really feel like anybody really fit into the bad night category for this card, so skipped out there. But yeah, that's all. For matchmaking tomorrow's video, I'm doing Eduardo Mora, Denise Gomes, Angela Hill, Vitor Petrino, Elvis Brenner, Kyle Braulio, Gabriel Bonfim, Nicholas Dalby, Derek Lewis, and Jailton Almeida. And then coming up this weekend, UFC 295 in Madison Square Garden. We've got Jerry Prochka taking on Alex Pereira with the co-main event and that's for the vacant 205 light heavyweight title. And the co-main event we've got for the interim heavyweight title, Sergey Pavlovich taking on Tom Aspinall. Sick card top to bottom. I cannot wait. It's kind of like the pay-per-view a few weeks ago that we had. I was buzzing about it. Volk Islam 2. Same here. This is going to be sick. This whole card is stacked. There's some sick fights on the main card other than these two. So I can't wait to get into that one. But yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow for matchmaking. Drop a like and subscribe. Peace.